Let's talk about why childhood victims of sexual abuse or severe trauma remain silent. One of the things after experiencing something horrific is the self blame that goes along with it. And, the child will feel they didn't do enough, or maybe they enticed the predator into doing what they did. In my case, I froze when Dennis Peg touched me. I became paralyzed. And I blamed myself for that. All throughout my life, whenever thoughts of the abuse would come into me, I would be like, why didn't I do more? Now I'm a grown man, 6'3", 230 pounds, and I would fight to the death before I would allow what happened to me as a child to ever happen again. But this is coming from the mind of an adult now. But the mind of the child, you know, blames themselves. Why didn't I fight back? Why didn't I try to gouge his eyes out or punch or kick or scream? Instead, I froze. I became paralyzed with fear, and I blamed myself for that. You know, and it feeds into the predator. That's perfect for a predator. It's exactly what they want, is for the victim to blame themselves. Um, it's just all throughout my life, it just haunted me that was my body's response to what he did. And I've had people, leave comments on podcasts that I've done. You know, they're obviously an adult leaving a comment saying, "I know that as a child I would have ran home immediately to my parents. I can't understand why you remain silent." It's like, really? You know exactly how as an adult, you know exactly how your mind as a child, your emotions as a child, your body as a child would have reacted. Well, bravo to you, but you're completely wrong. You have no idea how you would have reacted, and yet people take this high and mighty road that they know exactly what they would have done as a child. It's impossible to say what you would have done. 1 out of 10 children speaks up after abuse. 1 out of 10. That's the stats. It may be even worse than that. So even if it is 1 out of 10, that leaves 9 other children who are not speaking up. So self-blame is a huge win for the predator. Next is the shame that goes along with what was just done to you. It eats you up inside. You don't have coping skills for it. When I got dropped off down at Palmskill Lake by Dennis Peg after raping me, I ran down the river and I just was hugging myself and rocking back and forth along the river, trying to let the river soothe me from what just happened. And my mind, which was trying to protect me, said, "We are never going to talk about this. Talking about it is reliving it, and we don't want to relive it. Let's just bury it down deep inside and go about our life." That's the shame just gripping you and keeping you shut. And that's the worst thing that you can do for yourself. You need to get it out immediately. But that's not what my mind told me, and that's not what I did. Next is protection. Uh, a lot of times the abuser is a family member, and you want to protect that family member. You love that family member, even with what they're doing to you. It's it's blurry, and you don't even know if it's right or wrong at times. But you love that person, and you don't want to harm them, and you're not exactly sure if what they did was harm to you. This is when it's a family dynamic. I'm not saying in my case Dennis Pegg was my family dynamic, but a lot of abuse victims that reach out to me, it was a family member abusing them, and they want to protect the other, parent. They want to protect their siblings, and they'll, keep this secret to themselves to protect that family unit. So that's another key component to remain silent. The abuser will use that too. If you say anything, you'll ruin our family. Next, and this came into play in my situation, is fear. The predator abuser will often instill fear in their victims to keep them silent. After raping me, Dennis Pegg sat me down at his table, brought his dog, which had been howling all throughout my rape, and started beating his dog in front of me, and I was screaming for him to please stop, and he just kept beating and beating and beating until the dog lay in a heap at my feet. And Dennis Pegg said, if you ever open your mouth about what just happened, the same thing will happen to you. Boom. He instilled that fear in me, and that was an extremely life-changing event that I just witnessed. Let alone the life-changing event of having just gotten raped. Now I got the life-changing event of him beating his dog unconscious or to death in front of me. And that sealed me shut. And abusers will use fear of reprisal, fear of violence, fear of physical harm if the child opens their mouth. Or they may use fear of harming a family member if they open their mouth, or fear of harming a pet if they open their mouth. So fear is a big component why a child remains silent. And finally, another key component is usually the predator abuser is admired in the community. They usually have a high stature in the community. It's not the troll living under the bridge that snatches the child and molests them. Then the child would go running and screaming. But it's usually someone respected in the community, and your mind tells you, who's going to believe me over that person? And do you want to open up Pandora's box to come forward and then not be believed, which happens quite often? In my case, Dennis Pegg was a respected lieutenant at the county jail. He was a Boy Scout leader. He ran the Audubon Society in our area. He was on the historical committee. And you just go on and on and on, all the organizations he was involved in. He hid in plain sight, and people question, well, how could such a great, upstanding guy do such a thing? Even after I murdered him, and it came out why I murdered him, and even after another victim, Michael Finari, came forward and put his name in the paper and his picture in the paper and said the same exact thing, even then, still, people don't want to believe it. Dennis was too great of a guy to do such a thing. So, and this goes on and on constantly with abuse victims, And so what you need to do is you need to tell your child, number one, never, ever, ever should an adult ask you to keep a secret. If they do, come tell me immediately. Number two, predators like to blur lines. It could be the coach, it could be the instructor for piano lessons, it could be the, wrestling coach, whatever your child is involved in. If that person is a predator, they're going to start to blur the lines. It could be, if they're in sports, let's take our shirts off and pose for pictures to show, how in shape we're getting, how strong we're getting. Or it could be, let's have, you did so good with your music lesson. Let's have a hug at the end of it. I'm so proud of you. You're doing so great. Give me a hug. Or the tussling of the hair. And predators need to instill touch at some point. So the tussling of the hair becomes a pat on the knee, becomes a pat on the thigh, on and on it goes. So blurring lines. You need to explain to your child, set boundaries, and if anyone goes over those boundaries, they should tell you immediately. And always, instill in your child that you'll believe them. That if you come to me with something, I will believe you wholeheartedly. If the child feels they're going to go to their parent and not be believed, I can't tell you the countless people that have reached out to me where they go to their mother with abuse by the father, or abuse by the priest, or abuse by someone else respected, and the mother shuts them down and doesn't want to hear it. So explain to your child that you'll believe them, and they should trust you and come to you with any situation that makes them feel uncomfortable. Take care.